Good evening, everyone. And as Eric Trump said, we are thrilled to have won Pennsylvania with 87% of the vote in, and we're up almost 400,000 votes. So we're thrilled. And you ask, well, why do we care about the rest of the votes? Because it is about the integrity of this election. And every vote, as Mayor Giuliani said, in every state must be counted fairly. What we have seen, and we have a video of it that we will release to you, they put up, it looks like a police barricade all the way around the perimeter, and they are keeping our poll watchers back approximately 30 feet, at least 30 feet. You can judge for yourselves. They would not let them look any further. There is a gentleman there by the name of Seth Bluestein, who is an assistant to a city commissioner, and he is wearing a badge the size of a baseball. And as far as I know, he's not a sworn law enforcement officer. So it looks like intimidation to me, with a police barricade and a man wearing a huge badge around his neck. He told them they can't come any closer. He said the reason was because of they can't interfere with the process, and then something about COVID. Well, we all know at the polls you have to stay 6 feet apart. Our poll watchers have no problem with staying 6 feet away, yet they weren't allowed to do this. So we're going to release that video to you because then they also had binoculars. Our poll watchers brought out a pair of binoculars. They were shut down on the binoculars, but then they were told, well, okay, you can use the binoculars. So that's a concession that we are allowed to observe the ballots. Yet clearly when you see how big the room is, you cannot see every ballot. You can only see with the binoculars the ones that are closest to you. So that's a concession by them, and they're still not letting us see this. So we need to fix this. We need to remedy this now because we've won Pennsylvania, and we want every vote to be counted in a fair way. Thank you, and I'd like to introduce Corey Lewandowski.
Whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, you are allowed to do the voting process. They're trying to drown us out over there where we can't be heard. They're not going to do that. All eyes are on Pennsylvania, and they're trying to keep our eyes off the ballot. They are not going to get away with it. We are not going to stop. We are going to get in that room and be able to observe a legal process happen, not an illegal one.
Prior to being Attorney General of Florida, I was a career prosecutor for 18 years. I've prosecuted hundreds of jury trials in a courtroom very similar to the one today. Yet I've never seen anything like this. A judge is supposed to be a neutral arbiter of facts. First of all, this case was declined by many years from the Southern District of New York, by the Department of Justice, by multiple jurisdictions. Yet they bring it on the heels of a presidential election with a convicted felon, a convicted liar, Michael Cohen, who admitted in court yesterday to being a thief. They need to prosecute Michael Cohen now for stealing from the Trump organization. I've truly never seen anything like this. That judge was sustaining the prosecution's objections, meaning agreeing with them before they could barely get the objection out of their mouth. Listen, all the rights here, I'm a prosecutor, former prosecutor, yet all the rights here go to the defendant because it's his liberty at stake, and that has not been happening in this courtroom. So let's just pray that we have jurors that see through this. When Bob Costello was trying to answer questions on cross-examination today, the prosecutors were cutting him off. They didn't want him to tell the full truth. They only wanted to cherry pick portions of his statements. They weren't letting him answer the question. Prosecutors want the truth out there. You want everything to be heard so the jurors can make a fair and reasonable decision. This case should have never, ever been brought.
Pam Bondi doesn't have the obvious and frankly indisputable personal flaws that Matt Gaetz had, but they are both traditional, loyal Donald Trump acolytes. So on the one hand, this is a significant step up in terms of character and in terms of qualifications from Matt Gaetz. On the other hand, that is measuring against the lowest possible benchmark, which is to say, after Matt Gaetz, pretty much any nominee was going to look very, very good. What she and Matt Gaetz have in common is that, like the other picks for the Trump cabinet, she is being picked for a combination of two primary traits. One, the absolute complete loyalty to Donald Trump ahead of anything else. And two, the ability to translate that message and his message on television. He is looking for loyalty and pugnaciousness, and he's going to get both if Pam Bondi is confirmed. Donald Trump very much wants to break with the norm that the Attorney General is primarily responsible to the country. He wants the Attorney General to be primarily responsible to him and to his administration. That is absolutely a break with norms. On the other hand, you can say that the American people, rightly or wrongly, have chosen to embrace his norm-busting aura. And it's not as though he maintained this as a secret. He pledged throughout the campaign that he wanted the Attorney General and the Department of Justice to seek retribution, to seek vengeance. Now, to a certain extent, a nominee should reflect the person who nominates them and their values and policy perspectives. But it is troubling, to say the least, to have an Attorney General who is picked for loyalty to the president, especially when the president, in turn, is now cloaked with an immunity that was unthinkable, for example, during the Nixon administration. There's a long history between these two that would indicate that she is both a competent attorney and a very, very loyal Trump supporter. And where the line gets drawn and how blurred those two characteristics become is going to be a challenge, assuming that she's confirmed, which is to say that there will be times, I think it is an absolute certainty, given the degree to which Mr. Trump is trying to push the envelope on so many legal fronts, where fidelity to law and fidelity to Trump will be in tension. And that is going to be a crucible for Pam Bondi to deal with. The place where most Americans will see a marked difference will be on the immigration front, where Merrick Garland and the Department of Justice, broadly speaking, including Homeland Security, including ICE, have emphasized due process and incrementalism. It is clear that Donald Trump wants to wield as many aspects of the federal and state apparatus as possible to expedite his plans with regard to immigration and with regard to deporting those who are in the United States on an undocumented basis. I think that will, between the Department of Justice and the coalition, especially to the degree to which transgender issues were highlighted during the campaign, I suspect that on the fronts of rolling back reproductive rights, rolling back LGBTQ rights, and generally opposing efforts to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, I suspect the Department of Justice will be playing a very active role on those fronts. The math is simple in the confirmation process right now. If Pam Bondi can get every Republican senator to vote for her, Pam Bondi will get confirmed. And Donald Trump has already made clear that he, if he needs to, will use the recess appointment process aggressively, maybe even beyond its intended scope, to get his nominees in place. So.
I think it is. Just the whole, like,